Hi, my name is Nina Rusil. I'm the executive director of the Hub for Equal Representation at the LSE, which is a center aiming at improving the representation of women and minorities more broadly at work and in the field of economics in particular. Today, I'm going to tell you about one of the projects we have at the Hub that investigates how gender differences in salary demands influence the gender wage gap. So if we look at the bigger picture over the past several decades, the raw gender pay gap, especially in the US, has declined significantly, falling from about 40% in the 1960s to about 20% today. Now, while this raw gap has narrowed, if we look at the residual pay gap, which is the portion of the gap that cannot be accounted for by gender differences in observables or what we could call measure qualifications, that residual gap has stagnated around 10% for the past 30 years. And this is true in particular for high-income earners. This has obviously led researchers to look into the root causes of this residual gap. There is an entire strand of the literature that has, for example, highlighted behavioral differences between men and women to explain the gap. So for instance, it's now pretty clear that women have lower salary expectation than comparable men. And this has obviously raised concerns that women's lower salary expectations contribute to the persistent residual pay gap. But now, if you kind of take a step back, there hasn't been so far direct evidence on the effects of salary demands on the gender pay gap. And that's because usually we can only observe one side of the market. We're either going to observe the candidate side, say through a survey on candidate salary expectations, or the firm side, say through administrative data on salary offers. And so I feel this missing link between the candidate side and the firm side by considering the recruitment on hire.com, a high-skill online labor market for US tech workers. So what is unique about this setting is that the platform makes candidate post both a resume, which is pretty standard, but also a ask salary, which is how much the candidate wants to make in their next job. And then employers send candidates what we call bids, which is how much they're willing to pay the candidate based solely on that candidate's profile, that is their resume and their ask salary. And so using this data, I'm going to answer two questions. One of them is there an ask gap? That is, are women with similar resume to men asking for less? Spoiler alert, they are. And so the follow-up question is going to be, can this ask gap explain the difference in bids received on the platform? And so what I find is that women on the platform ask for about 3% less than men with similar resume. And this is both statistically significant, but also economically meaningful. It represents close to $4,000 a year. Strikingly, this difference in ask between men and women can explain 100% of the difference in bids that they are receiving on the platform. Now, this does not necessarily demonstrate that narrowing the ask gap would lead to more equitable bids. And so to infer causality, I use a change in hire.com feature. So what I use is the fact that in mid-2018, the platform began sort of prompted candidates to provide their ask salary in a box that was no longer empty, but now pre-filled with the median bid salary on the platform for their combination of desired location, job title, and experience. And by comparing candidates that created a profile right before and right after this change, I find that the new feature eliminated the ask and the bid gap on the platform. It also had no impact on the number of bids or final offers women received compared to men, suggesting that women were effectively leaving money on the table. Thank you for your attention.